terms of the apartheid technology. Later on, it changed to the Gandhi Digital Documentation Center. At the 120th year commemoration, you see Mayor Civil House, and you see the Johannesburg Mayor there. You also see Mamusutu Buthelezi that's there, and you also see Y.S. Chinsami, but Mrs. Albertina Mutuli, that's also part of the commemoration. So this is a way of involving other members of the community, other parts of South African community in the commemoration. An interesting commemoration of the 120th year is this settler point, and that word itself became problematized in many ways. Along this road specifically, you have the building to my left, which is by the Saiva and the Sungam, and this was the 1860 settlers hall that was established. But specifically this coin, and I haven't got hold of this coin to display it at the center, so hopefully one day it is gold, so I presume that it's worth a bit of money. But I haven't seen it as yet, and it will be interesting to have it on display, especially in our artifacts. But an interesting way in which Indenture was commemorated. This coin was specifically used for being able to raise funding for the services of the sun. We then turn our attention to the Indian Academy of South Africa, and the way in which they commemorated it. This was in 1985. I doubt very much whether Professor Mir, as you see on the top right-hand corner, would have been pleased being juxtaposed against some of the individuals there, which were heavily supportive of the House of Delegates. But nonetheless, Mr. T.P. Naidoo, in his wisdom, chose to put her in there. I think he probably didn't even ask permission for that. But that's the way in which Indenture was commemorated at that particular time, largely community-based. And these were grand awards taking place on the 16th of November, often in City Hall, with grandiose celebrations and so on, often divorced from the community and very people of Indigenous ancestry. You see Elizabeth Snedden being feted here by this particular commemoration, and this grand celebration taking place in City Hall. I'm into 11 minutes. Also worried about this road shape. But here we see diverse commemoration, and Uma, you know that you're part of this program. So is Auntie Ella Gandhi, and Professor Joe Beale was also part of the talks that took place here. An interesting part of this commemoration was that this fashion designer had developed a movie or production. I'm interested to see this production for the 1868 Center in terms of how the commemorations unfolded. Now here's something very interesting. I see NBC, former NBC, Ravi Pillay in the audience. It's not the democratic governments that delayed the monument, it's actually the apartheid government. This is a Mercury article that I just posted to Gulam recently, and it's incredible that in 1985 the monument was mooted, and you see this particular article speaks about the mayor doing a sword-turning ceremony and a sculpture or monument that was going to be developed to the tune of 300,000 rand, but nothing happened. I've never seen anything that's happened. It'd be interesting to go to the site, which is opposite the John Ross sculpture. But so, you know, this whole monument movement started way back in 1985. And then by 1990, an entire building named after the Trudeau, a further expression of the way in which commemorations took place, to 12 minutes. And then later on, the sad reality about this place is that the staff at the moment are under strike because the provisions in terms of electricity and a whole host of other things are really, really poor. And for those reasons, it speaks about service delivery in our democracy that we live in 2023. In 2020, I see an audience member that's depicted on here. That's part of the commemorations that took place in 1990. And then in 2010, so the previous one was 2020. And then in 2010 is when the whole idea of Indian Indenture really took off. Inside Indenture became a seminal book in being able to commemorate Indian Indenture, but you have a whole host of commemorations, celebrations, and so on that took place where Indenture became widely known to the broader public. Minister Roy Paliachi, Minister of Communication, opened this memorial project in the town of Belvedere, the second ship that brought Indentured Indians to South Africa, in Tongaat. And there was a series of different elements, largely plaques, that you would see, but he had also brought in other elements rather than just the names of indentured and struggle veterans and so on that were depicted as part of the memorial plaques. And then there were further expressions. Ashwin Desai I was a keynote speaker at this exhibition opening. I was the curator of this particular exhibition. Notice the Naidoo, which I'll speak about later on, which is part of the 160th year commemorations. Just mindful of the time and load shedding as we reach 10 o'clock. Just quickly go through this, move through it very quickly. This is a walkthrough of the exhibition that was curated at the Durban Art Gallery. In commemoration, you see Bronwyn Finley's work there, Andrew Foster's work, Ravi Govinder's work that you see there, Shalim Khan, Andrew Foster's work, Faiza Galdari in Andrew Foster's work that you see, Kirian Tatya's work, which is part of the Durban Art Gallery collection. So this was a further expression of commemorating indenture. And this was an exhibition entitled Samsara Continuous Pursuit. In 2012, I'll speak about the indentured monument. It doesn't look like I'm into load shedding, but in 2012, with the frustration of the fact that the indentured monument that was mooted by the provincial government was not done, we had various organizations creating monuments. This particular one was done by the Natal Cane Growers Association and was launched by Pat Singh, president of the Cane Growers Association. The bronze artist was Sarah Richards, who later did the bas relief that is at Fairview. Further community commemoration, again because of the frustration of the government monument not being erected in 2014, 16 November at the Mariamman Temple, Sri Mariamman Temple, you have an indentured monument being created and still exists today, being able to continue with commemorations. Living monuments, Malik Maharaj noted that instead of a static monument, static versus living monuments, that we should look towards protecting the history of the city, look at the early morning market, the Curry's Fountain precinct, and a whole host of others that we could be using as living monuments rather than having static monuments. Remember, at this context, this time, we're at the Black Lives Matter movement, and later on the Roads Must Fall movement that started to change the way in which monuments would appear and will obviously have a bearing in terms of the present monument. At the 1870 and the 160 year commemoration, whole host of commemorations that took place. You have an online virtual commemoration largely because of COVID, and the program that took place at the beach as well, all COVID compliant. Community commemorations, again the same Siddhantha, the indentured 18 indentured labor of Verum, hopefully got that right. And then you have a wonderful commemoration with living monuments and a banana plantation that was set up. And it still exists today. I think it yields a lot more bananas at Depot Road Memorial School out in Chatsworth. And I think of all the commemorations, because of the fact that it still yields these bananas, it means it's a far significant contribution in terms of the way indentures commemorate. Remember I spoke about the marigold. The marigold was used as a simple tribute commemorating indenture, which is offered to the Indian Ocean, the Kalapani, acknowledging a people's contribution. The 1860 Indenture Labourers Foundation commemorated and unveiled this monument. I see members of that particular foundation in the audience. It was unveiled by Jay Singh and Anand Jairaj, who's in the audience. Again, the artist is Sarah Richardson, and it was a relief sculpture or relief bas relief that you see on the entrance of Federal, at the entrance. So where is this monument, the 2010 monument that was promised by the government of KZN? This is a quick timeline. 1860 Legacy Foundation in 2009 decided to, one of their specific goals was to establish a monument, to build a monument under the subcommittee of the monument, which was chaired by Selvan, and it was promised that this would be signed in partnership with the Premier's office and Etekweni municipality. In the lead up to the 2010 commemoration, the then Premier Julian Keys set aside 10 million for the project. According to Archery, parts of this budget was allocated for plaques across various parts of Durban, and as you see, Durban, Stanger, Port Shepstone, Lady Smith. You will have all this happening within the context of the Black Lives Matter movement, 2015 Roads Must Fall movement. It started to sort of articulate the way in which we need to change. The way in which the articulation of the monument needs to change. At the time, very quickly, Ruben Levy was appointed to be able to oversee this project. Nanda Subin was the selected design was rejected by the committee. I'm going to move through very quickly. The sword turning ceremony which took place, and then you have, by 2021, you have a new monument committee that was appointed by Sishes Kalala to manage this whole process, and MEC Ravi Pillai was the chair of this particular committee, which managed the process going forward. The committee finalized the design process and handed over that to be managed by the Department of Arts and Culture, Sports, Arts and Culture. The design submissions were approved by the KZN Legislature, and KZN Sports, Arts and Culture manages this process. And these were some of the rejected designs. One particular one before this, you see a lady with banga and the plaques that you're going to have depicted. You then have footprints that was going to be seen aerially. An interactive sculpture, the hull of the ship was one of the designs. This was one of the designs that was also part of the submission. And interestingly, the material here was Pot 10, which is going to be used in the submission that was advertised. So these were the rejected one. The committee then turned to Nanda Subin, who provided a sculpture that was going to be used for the monument. And then the sword turning ceremony took place. All this under this context of what was happening worldwide. You've got to understand the context which sort of guides the process of the design process. The Roads Must Fall is significant in the way in which decolonial identity is taking place, especially in universities and so on and so forth. And this seriously affects the way in which we view monuments in present day, and how the design needs to really consider this in terms of monolithic, megalithic sculptures, especially ostentatious use of bronze in terms of the material. We had the defacement of the Mahatma Gandhi statue in 2015. You also had the removal of the sculpture of Gandhi at the Garden campus. And here again, in 2023, you have the current political context of the Phoenix, the 2021 riots, ANC factions. Will this monument be supported when we've got an election coming up? The Monument Committee concluded with a commemoration expression that was made public and available. You note that this closing date for the submissions was the 22nd of August 2023. So that means that process concluded. This is the design that was chosen by the committee, but this is available publicly, and it's going to be based on the arch of unity and without. So that was the whole process in the way in which it involves, as you see, the design at the top. It speaks of social cohesion, involvement of the Zulu crowd, in the way in which the Zulu community or the community accepted indentured people into the fabric of South African history, and the way in which that is all part of it. So there's all sorts of things that are taking place. My time is up. So